third attempt at talking F1 2024 whilst I walk around one of, well, the English Riviera Christmas lights parade. I figured, you know, keep it Christmassy. I'm just gonna move that a tiny bit up. There we go. There. Hopefully now you can hear me. So here we go. So F1 2024. What an absolutely exciting season, wouldn't you say? Where Max Verstappen ends up being the four-time world champion. Some people, I guess, would have kind of figured 2021 world champion maybe. Yeah, possibly. But he got the most wins. He got the most pole positions. So I guess 2024 was Max Verstappen's year. However, seeing as I'm actually starting from the rear of this Christmas walk, let's start at the back. Let's talk about Haas. What a season Haas has had. Why? Well, Haas has had an absolutely amazing season. Let's be honest. When we started all the way back in Bahrain, beginning of this year in February, one of the earliest starts in my lifetime for a Formula One, we ended up having a Haas team that had lost Gunther Steiner, a new guy in charge, and we all thought, who is this Japanese guy? He ended up being an absolute Japanese master. And we also had this Japanese guy end up having one of Haas's most successful years on the back of what ended up being, let's be fair, a really, really slow car. It wasn't fast at all, was it? It was absolutely not fast at all. And their two drivers, Nico Hülkenberg, who now, sadly for Haas, is off to the Sauber team, isn't he? Which kind of sucks, really, if I'm honest. So he's off to the Sauber team, which, as we know, in 2026 is going to be the Audi team. So there's Hülkenberg thinking, okay, has he made the right decision? I think he has. It is the Audi team. By all parts, you know, he is going to be the number one at the Audi team. But let's spare a thought for poor old Kevin Magnussen, who, to be honest, is probably not going to make it back to Formula One. I mean, that's kind of really sad, isn't it? He's not going to make it back to Formula One, I imagine. He's probably going to end up in WEC or something. But the Haas team, I think, did absolute miracles at the beginning of the season. They were astonishing. From where they were to where they ended up, they were constantly fighting to get into Q3. What more could you say? So from the Haas team, let's now talk about the Williams team. Yes, I know Williams finished lower than Haas. Disappointing. Alex Albon, he was not as impressive as he was last year, if I'm honest, in 2023. Alexander Albon, he just wasn't fast. He just was not fast, consistent. Now, I imagine partly it's probably because, so I'm trying to cross the road, it's probably because the Williams car, even by James Vowles' assertion, was not as good as last year. There is a very good reason why. James Vowles told us the reason why, and that reason is because last year and the last few years, the Williams teams really focused. They focused on speed, which is why okay, we're back. We got disconnected. So where were we? Yeah, we were talking about Williams. So James Vowles said the Williams team, they're not going to be as fast, are they? They're not going to be as fast this year. He kind of like threw out our expectations for that, I guess, which is kind of fair. Kind of expected it. Logan Sargent. Oh, Logan. Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. He was a slightly less talented Colapinto in the end. He crashed a lot, but he didn't get the highs of Franco Colapinto, did he? Sadly, he did not get those highs of Franco Colapinto, which is why he was gone. He ended up having that big whoopsie-daisy all the way in Holland, in Zandvoort, which wasn't particularly great, was it? Poor guy. But there we go. So he's out, sadly. Also, Franco Colapinto, okay, he came in with an absolute blast. Now, let's be fair, at the beginning of the 2024 season, did any of you know, did any of you realise, did any of you know who Franco Colapinto was? I very much doubt it. I didn't know, well, I knew of him, but I didn't know whether he was going to be any good. However, in the end, he did all right, didn't he? He did all right for the first few races. He was putting Alex Albon under pressure, and that's the first time we've seen Albon under pressure pretty much at all since he's actually joined the Williams team. So there is Alex Albon under pressure, and for the first time for a while, probably since his Red Bull days, we saw Alex Albon under pressure making mistakes. And then we saw the other side of Colapinto, which was he embraced his inner Logan Sargent, didn't he? Which was kind of sad. I felt really bad. But yeah, he embraced his inner Logan Sargent, and well, there we go. So from Williams to Alpine, the former Renault team now run, well, in part, but they brought Flavio Briatore back. I thought that was going to be a massive mistake. I thought, no, surely not. You do not want to bring Flavio Briatore, but they did, and they ended up from kind of like Haas, one of the slowest teams, but I think they were the slowest team for a lot longer, to now, not obviously one of the best teams, but they didn't do too bad, did they? I mean, they had that they didn't deserve to be as high as they were, you could argue. Oh, sorry. But they had that really good end of the year where they really fixed their car, and it came good, and it was fast. It was getting into those. It was getting out of Q1, which sometimes they didn't, and it was getting into those all-important Q2 sessions, which I think was really, really important for them. So they ended up on an absolute blast. It was absolutely fantastic. So go Gasly. He's staying. Sadly, for some, Esteban Ocon is going. He's going to Haas. Kind of like Hulkenberg. I'm wondering, is he going to be questioning? I mean, because as we know, Alpine, I kind of slagged them off slightly earlier this year, simply because I was questioning, is Alpine a serious Formula One team? This is a team now that has those Renault engines, and they are dropping the Renault engines, yet they call themselves a works team, and they are putting Mercedes engines in there, which, yes, is good, but look how good McLaren did. But you can't call yourself Alpine. Alpine are a works team. They're the former Renault team. I mean, this is a team that had Fernando Alonso, 2005, 2006, world champion. Before that, if you remember, it was Benetton with Michael Schumacher. That was kind of a works team with a works Renault engine at least. And now, you've got this Alpine team that it's just really, really sad. I mean, I'm really disappointed as I'm now going down a very darkened alley. But I'm really super disappointed in the Haas team. So, you probably can't see me now. I can assure you I'm still here. Yeah. So this Haas team, not good at all. Not this Haas team, the Alpine team, I think are a bit of a joke. Is that wrong? Is that controversial? I don't know. But there you go. There's my thoughts on the Alpine team. They've got Jack Doohan in next year, which I think is going to be interesting. Yes, he did his debut. I mean, that was all. I mean, what a shambles that was. Let's get rid of Ocon for the last race after everything Esteban Ocon has indeed done for this team. Bearing in mind, he won. He's the one guy that's won in the Alpine since they've been named Alpine. Thanks to also this stern defence from Mr. Fernando Alonso, of course. But he won at Hungary in 2021, and they just kind of like shoved him to the curb in the end because they wanted to give Jack Doohan a chance with the one race. No, I don't. Why? Because I kind of felt, yeah, he qualified pretty much at the back, didn't he? He didn't really set the world alight at all. So I think that's done more harm than good for poor Franco Colapinto. It absolutely has. As you can now hear the Christmas tones during my Christmassy walk. So it's very sad. And poor Ocon. So let's move on to Aston Martin, shall we? As we go straight past. As we're going straight past. So, Aston Martin. What do we think of Aston Martin? Well, they have Lance Stroll. That's enough said. I've always said, and I did a video the other day, Aston Martin, not good at all. Disappointing season. When you look at their absolute highs of F1 2023, last year, how Alonso ended up getting all of those podiums. It was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? Alonso getting all those podiums. And then, to this year, well, yeah, Alonso got a few podiums. Let's be fair, even when the car was great, Lance Stroll didn't get a podium at all. Lance Stroll was closer to Alonso this year, but I felt Alonso, knowing the car wasn't particularly good, he went into a negative Alonso mode, which is basically Fernando Alonso hitting almost a reverse button, didn't he? And it was a big shame. Lance Stroll, I mean, I think he peaked in Brazil, didn't he? When he ended up on the formation lap, having that crash, and then going into the gravel. I mean, come on, what the actual? So, I mean, there's Lance Stroll, not good at all. Really, really, really disappointing was Lance Stroll. So, Fernando Alonso, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. Yes, Adrian Newey's there, but Adrian Newey's not really going to be able to make much of a difference at Aston Martin, is he? No, I don't think he is. He's not going to make much of a difference at all. So we've gone from Adrian Newey, Aston Martin. He's going to make a big difference for the 2026 team, though, isn't he? Definitely, in that 2026 car, it's going to be good. So, we've gone from there, Aston Martin. Let's talk about Mercedes. And what an interesting year. What a great year George Russell has had. I mean, let's be honest, he's had an absolutely humdinger of a year. He's had an absolutely fantastic year, has George Russell. Beaten Hamilton soundly, out-qualified him soundly. The interesting thing is, in the race, I still feel Hamilton was a lot faster. Well, not a lot faster. He was stronger in most of the races. Races like Qatar aside. But the problem for him, though, he qualified so far back on the grid that, let's be honest, it wasn't going to happen, was it? No. It wasn't going to happen among the Sundays at all. Was poor Lewis. So even though he had the quicker race pace, so to speak, he wasn't really going to undo his bad qualifying, of which he actually did. So Lewis Hamilton, a disappointing year. However, let's be honest, the highlight of which is going to be that Silverstone win. What an absolutely fantastic win for Lewis Hamilton. I mean, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. Lewis Hamilton, Formula One, Silverstone. I mean, it was an absolute dream. I had tears in my eyes. That was a hard-fought race where everyone else made mistakes. Verstappen wasn't quick enough, and there goes Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix. I will take that over Max Verstappen's Brazilian Grand Prix victory. Max, yeah, he would have won it anyway. It was an amazing victory, arguably his best of his career. Didn't have the story and the romance behind it though, albeit Verstappen going into the Brazilian Grand Prix would have felt the pressure. But there we go. But George Russell, I mean, if Mercedes now want a new leader, they've got it in George Russell, haven't they? He looks stunning. He looks amazing, does George Russell. But we've got Kimi Antonelli in next year. I think Russell's going to beat him. And but I think Kimi will be very strong. I think he'll be very fast. And as you know, Kimi Antonelli's got a long way to go. I don't think anyone expects him to beat George Russell. And if he does, we're looking at a very similar Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton year, if you remember. I mean, that was really interesting. So we've gone from there, George Russell, and now all these rumours, weren't there, about Max Verstappen potentially going to Mercedes. And I think come the end of the year, because everyone thought, well, they're going to kick George Russell's going to be the one kicked out. But at the end of the year, especially when you look at that Las Vegas Grand Prix, he showed he could be the team leader. And I think if both of them have if both Kimi Antonelli, which I think even if he has a bad 2025, they're going to keep him. Kimi Antonelli and George Russell have an interest, a solid 2025. I can't see Mercedes hiring Max Verstappen. It'd be very expensive. He's going to be more expensive than probably George Russell and Kimi Antonelli combined. And I can't really see them employing George Russell at all. No, sorry, I can't see them employing Max Verstappen. What am I talking about? I can't see them employing Max Verstappen at all in relation to that. So there you go. But that's Mercedes. Let's talk then. Let's talk Ferrari. Now, a lot of people have suggested that Ferrari ended up arguably the second or the first or second best car, depending on where you go. They started off with a solid car, but it wasn't going to be a Red Bull beater. And then they carried on. They ended up winning Australia, albeit with a bit of luck. Carlos Sainz had that bit of luck. Max Verstappen, his brakes were gone. His brakes were going. There were cheers, weren't there? There were many cheers in Australia when Max Verstappen ended up coming in. But there we go. So Ferrari had a really solid year. Everyone's saying, oh no, Carlos Sainz, poor Carlos, it's so bad. Why haven't they kept him? But then you've got to think all the way back in February, you've got a 7-time world champion to sign. Not only is he arguably one of the greatest drivers of all time, yes, we may have questions now. I don't think we do though, because he's still fast. He showed it the last week and Las Vegas, and still has it. Qualifying pace, yeah, that could come down to the car. Proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating for next year for Hamilton. But everyone was going, oh, poor Carlos Sainz, and I don't see it. I think he's a really good driver, but he didn't beat Leclerc, did he? So I mean, someone suggested they see him as a. It's going to upset a few people, I imagine. They see him as almost like a Jenson Button type, in terms of Jenson Button. Not as good as Hamilton, I think he'd even admit, or Alonso. However, given the right situation and the right team, he could win a title. He won a title, and he did very well, beating Barrichello and Sebastian Vettel, who were catching him up towards the end of the year. And even he admitted himself, there was quite a lot of pressure. So yeah, I completely understand. And that's where a lot of people see Carlos Sainz. He is not as good, I think, as a lot of people give Carlos Sainz credit. I think he's very good, but he's not Hamilton. He's not an Alonso. He is not
childhood memories.
He's not a Max Verstappen, but he is a very solid driver, which is why Audi really wanted him, didn't they? Audi wanted him quite badly. Sadly, they didn't get him. Onwards then to McLaren, the Constructors' Champions, the best team in 2024, bar none, weren't they? Let's be honest. They were absolutely fantastic. McLaren, they won the Constructors. Lando Norris got his first race win. Oscar Piastri got his first race win. And I could not have been happier for McLaren. Max Verstappen almost tried his best for McLaren to do a whoops at 80, but fortunately it did not happen. So in terms of McLaren, they didn't have the best car to begin with. They had updates, yes, they did have the dodgy, what do you want to call it, dodgy rear wing, the DRS wing, which when taken off there was a performance issue, there was. But then Lando Norris has come of age. He does need to learn to fight Max Verstappen though, doesn't he? Yes, absolutely he does. He really does need to learn to try and fight Max Verstappen. So as we're going up the bridge. And one thing Lando, I think, does know, that Max Verstappen is absolutely uncompromising. And in 2025, if Max can go for the title, he's very much going to do so again, isn't he? Which is, I guess, maybe slightly concerning for some. So, Oscar Piastri. Now, some people might not completely agree with me here. However, I can't help but feel I'm disappointed in Oscar Piastri. I'm really disappointed in Oscar Piastri. I thought he was going to have a much better season than he did. I thought he was going to be a lot closer to Lando, and yes, in some races, he was close to Lando Norris. In some races, he was very close to Lando. However, it's not good. It just wasn't good enough, was it? I mean, like, we had Hungary, who was good. Monza, he was good, even though that was a bit silly when you look at the team. And I can't help but feel that McLaren really never gave it full beans in fighting for the Drivers' Championship. It was fairly obvious they were going to win the Constructors. I think even from about halfway through the season, even after Miami, when Lando won, people were thinking, oh no, you know, could he do it? Could he do it? And McLaren very much did. And they are the best team. Now, this will be controversial, because let me talk to you about the worst team in Formula One, in my opinion. And I've got my reasons. It's not biased, it's not British bias. The best driver, Max Verstappen. Yeah, completely agree. Worst team, Red Bull. Why is Red Bull the worst team? What do you think about it? Beginning of the year, they had the fastest car, the most dominant car. It looked like, after the first couple of races, it looked like it was going to be an absolute breeze for that championship. So how did they not win the Constructors? Well, Sergio Perez, they should have got rid of him. They had a chance halfway through the season. Instead, come around the Canadian Grand Prix, we got that announcement that Sergio Perez had renewed, I think, for 2 years because of hurty feelings, and they wanted him. You know, they thought it would inspire him. Sadly, the only people that inspired were, I think, Ferrari and McLaren trying to win the Constructors, and Red Bull ended up all the way back in third place. Can you believe it? Red Bull ended up all the way back in third place. So they've taken the most dominant car and finished third. Now, people went around and went, no, it's been ages since Guy won in the third best car. No, Red Bull was one of the best cars. Remember, Red Bull was indeed, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best cars of 2024. When you saw Max, he got the most wins. Best car driver combination, yeah, probably, if I'm honest. So, let's go also with one of the other reasons why I think they're one of the worst teams in 2024 is simply because WhatsApp-gate. Now, I'm not going to comment too much on Christian Horner. Well, there's been so many videos done on that, haven't there? However, in relation to WhatsApp-gate, we have a team that, through maybe their lawyers, potentially just didn't comment on anything at all. And then when the WhatsApp came out, and all these messages came out where it's been alleged that Christian Horner / sexual harassment / other things, blackmailing, etc. He kept quiet. And to this day, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, he has not denied the WhatsApp messages. Oh, sorry. And we're back. So, let's go this way. It is dark now, isn't it? It is getting fairly dark. 24 minutes or so in to the live stream. So, also, we need to consider, in relation to Red Bull, that the way they dealt with Daniel Ricciardo, and it wasn't RB, it was the main Red Bull team, because let's be fair, they're kind of in charge of the drivers, was absolutely ridiculous. The send-off that Daniel Ricciardo got ended up being a massive middle finger. It absolutely did. The way, and when you look at the way Red Bull have handled other drivers, when you look at Nick De Vries, you look at Alexander Albon, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Kvyat, and then the way they dealt with both, obviously, you know, them, compared to the way they dealt with Sergio Perez. I mean, what the actual Sergio Perez? How many chances did they give him? Everyone thought come the summer break he's going to be gone, in spite of that new contract that Red Bull gave him, and he stayed. And he stayed after Belgium. It was a massive mistake. And if Red Bull are slightly upset about losing that Constructors' Championship, they only need to look in the mirror and look at themselves. Horner needs to look in the mirror. He is the reason, and the senior management team are the reason they did not get rid of Sergio Perez. Ergo, Red Bull finished third in the Constructors. Not because they had a bad car, let's be fair. I think they would have been fighting. McLaren and Ferrari till the bitter end, and it would have been really exciting. But they didn't, did they? It was so disappointing to see that. It was really, really bad. Which is then why I think Red Bull are one of the worst teams in 2024. Why? Adrian Newey left, John Wheatley's leaving. You had the WhatsApp gate at the beginning of the year. They started the year, in spite of that, with the best car. In spite of that, they were winning. They were doing really well. They were doing good. And then, until they didn't. Until they were doing good. Until they didn't. And then just mistakes. Just mistakes and mistakes. It was just absolutely sad from Red Bull. And I just don't understand why they didn't get rid of Sergio Perez sooner. And then you got this whole Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda who's going in. That set the internet ablaze. I mean, it's almost like the PR team for Red Bull had an absolute gap year in 2024, because where were they? It was the worst PR team of all time, I feel. It was just absolutely shocking, was the Red Bull PR team in relation to the beginning of the year. So the Horner thing, yes, he was, quite rightly, I think it was nice. He was still at the launch. Didn't really see him, but didn't comment. Then he had the WhatsApp gate. Continue the embarrassment. Sergio Perez renewing his contract, continuing the embarrassment. The way the Red Bull company as a whole handled Daniel Ricciardo's contract, embarrassing and really, really unfair. And a massive middle finger to Daniel Ricciardo. It was really horrible. And from Daniel Ricciardo, and then the keeper, I still can't believe they kept Sergio Perez. That's the big one. That's the massive middle finger, I think, to all the Red Bull. Why? Well, not only the Red Bull fans, I guess, are going to be sad, because obviously, hey, they love Red Bull, it's their team. But then you think of all the hard-working people, from the cleaner all the way to the top, and all the engineers. No bonus, because a company couldn't do what was quite obvious right in front of them. So all those teams lose out on their bonus, which, I don't know, would it have arrived at Christmas or the end of the year, maybe? It would have been good, wouldn't it? But no. And what a middle finger to all those hard-working people at Red Bull by keeping. I don't have anything wrong with Sergio. I'm sure behind the scenes everyone says he's a nice guy. Do I feel sorry for him? No, I don't. Some people do. He's got to drive. He's one of 20 people driving the fastest car in the world. At one point, driving the fastest car in the world in 2023. He has millions of pounds. Why should anyone feel sorry for Sergio Perez? On the day, so to speak, he was just not good enough, was he? And all that is why I think Red Bull have been the worst team in 2024. I mean, Sauber, you could argue, yeah, they finished last. But we knew that. They started very low anyway, didn't they? All the way down. So, there we go. Best driver, yeah, you got to give it. I think Max Verstappen, in spite of, obviously, the Mexicos, in spite of the USAs, in spite of the Austrias, he has proven today that he's proven this year, though, that he still cannot race fairly. He can't race side by side fairly, and when the shells are stacked against him, he ends up becoming Max Verstappen of old in 2021. And that's one thing I think a lot of us want to see different in 2025. Now, a lot of people have said, oh no, he's just making the most of the rules. He's making the most, he's so clever. No, he's not. It's not clever to knock a driver off, is it? It's not clever to force a driver wide or hit him, or saying, well, I'm going to come through and hit you, or you get out of the way. No, that's not clever. That's not big. That's not racing at all. That's just a bit sad. But based on that, though, he had so many good performances. It is tough to say he wasn't the best driver of 2024. And then you got to talk about Leclerc and Sainz in and around in second place. Well, thereabouts. So, anyway, I'm in the middle of the car park. Cars are now reversing, going around me. And I just guess I'll leave it here. So thank you for anyone that's either watched this or is going to watch it. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas for 2024. We'll obviously still be around all year. And going into the new year as well. And we're going to get excited. We've got obviously the new F1 season, possibly one of the most exciting. And we've also got the rally season kicking off in less than a month. Well, coming up to just over a month now. And obviously our touring cars as well. And IndyCar, MotoGP, etc. Anyway, on that, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. This has been the Hot Lap.